Every single day on Twitter, I'm introduced to a new guy, just a dude, a person you run into and like you see online and you're like, and you kind of wonder where this person came from. And, a lot of the times I don't really feel like I like talking about these people, they're not worth my time, but this one kind of has some motion. This dude has some motion. I kind of want to talk about how much of a loser he is, just like a piece of shit. So I want to talk about a guy named the Faithful Sheriff or the Faith Sheriff or whatever he calls himself on Twitter, on Twitch, and all that tomfoolery. And the first thing I saw him was this clip right here, where he basically jokes about and like kind of convinces a kid to work for ICE in Fortnite. Now, obviously, the people reacted as they should in this way, just calling him a massive piece of shit and just like saying he's an absolutely terrible dude. Everyone was so confused and like, how do you get this low in your life that you're just like as a peanut playing Fortnite and joking about, hey kid, let's join ICE. They didn't just execute 2 people in the last 2 months. That would never happen, huh? While also like kind of running this idea of like being a faithful man, like having the Bible on his side, and all that stuff. And I didn't really talk about this guy at first, I didn't talk about him like 4 days ago when I saw this clip because I did think he was legitimately the burnt peanut, just like as a side character. But apparently, you're not supposed to think that, and he calls you mentally disabled if you are, dumb enough to, I guess, mix them up. And he's trying to say, oh, we look exactly different, but like, bro, okay, if this dude has a bunch of different, whatever designs, and then you look like that, you very much well could be another version of the burnt peanut. And I literally thought it was the same dude because once again I talked about how like the burnt peanut has like slur Saturday or whatever, and like he just does a bunch of random bits. So I honestly thought that they were the same person because I didn't really want to think too much about the burnt peanut past the video that I made. But apparently they're 2 different dudes. And honestly, the Faithful Sheriff is kind of like a bigger piece of shit somehow. So if you like really wanted to clip and like you really wanted to look into the type of content that the Faithful Sheriff makes, I think this clip is kind of a pretty good encapsulation of the high quality content that you will run into if you do watch his stream.
Well, good Monday morning, everybody. It's the Faithful Sheriff, and today we're going into Fortnite and telling everybody about the good Lord like we always do. Yes, sirree. We're live right now on twitch.tv/the Faithful Sheriff, so come on in. Everyone's welcome. If you're...
Now, I do apologize to anyone who's like eyes and ears who had to watch this. This, as you can see, the kind of content that this guy produces is him just doing a bunch of fart jokes and proselytizing in Fortnite. That's literally all you're going to get, and I really do not know who this is for. It's kind of weird and absolutely crazy. And just, it's, once again, it's like a new guy you run into. It's like, okay, you exist in the same world that I do. And so I kind of like started looking more and more into this dude and like, the type of stuff that he posts. So this is another one that he posts that, shows how shit of a human being he is. Happy Wednesday, not for Iran, lol, we're live.
Is rethinking their life choices and whether or not it was a good idea to go up against the United States of America. We're going into Fortnite telling everybody about the good Lord here on this good Wednesday morning. Everybody's welcome in the chat now. Come on in and have yourself a good time. If you're not kind of like, however,
so he's kind of like shit talking Iran, and kind of saying, oh, you went against the United States while doing his really shitty southern accent and everything like that. And also, I'm looking at like the scene that I saw. It's kind of really AI generated, and he also has like a burnt peanut like wanted poster on the wall, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. But once again, making fun of the United States attacking Iran. And if you're somehow not fully informed about United States strikes on Iran, this is basically shows you how well they're going. The United States bombed a school and killed 170 people in Iran. Really funny, haha, Iran. We bombed this school and killed a fuck ton of people. But, as long as you change the regime, we'll accept and, we'll say we're sorry that we bombed and killed a bunch of children. So yeah, that's something I think you really want a peanut with the Bible on his side to be joking about on online and everything. And then obviously, a lot of people are getting mad at him, and he's just saying, if you have a problem with me telling people in Fortnite about Jesus, kid or adult, you're a direct enemy of God, and if you read your Bible, it doesn't end well for the enemies of God. So, he's obviously having a big main character syndrome scenario right here where he's trying to say that, he is the one and sole protector of Jesus Christ himself online, and saying that, if you talk about why he's a bad person, and also, I guess, if you have a problem with him telling people in Fortnite about Jesus, then apparently you are an affront to God himself. Is interesting and an interesting, way to look at it. And I did kind of scroll a little bit down, and I wanted to see because like a lot of his content and his posts online don't really have a lot of progress and like a lot of motion anyway for someone who has like a substantial following like him. And I found out something pretty interesting about this guy is that apparently he only became like his little peanut self very recently. This is a post from February 5th of this year where he has a face cam on right here. You know, you can see who the faithful peanut, the faithful sheriff is. Apparently, until like a month ago, he was called Dr. Witnesser. And I've seen multiple polls on his account where basically people are like, you know, voting on whether or not he should stay as the peanut or go back to Dr. Witnesser. And it was almost overwhelmingly towards going back to Dr. Witnesser. And so not even his like psychopathic community also likes, you know, the pivot that he's gone. And he will say multiple times that like he's not copying the burnt peanut, you know, it's just conveniently that a month ago he turned into a peanut as well, you know, through some God's miracle, he turned into a peanut online is basically, I guess, what he tried to say. And like it's kind of clear that he is riding a little bit on the success of the burnt peanut being like a really funny VTuber because like that's kind of what he pivoted to, even though legitimately no one in his community wants him to do it, and every single human being outside of it is just kind of saying you're a copy of the burnt peanut. And another interesting thing too is that like if you go to his account and you go to, you know, his about you, he just says links to a bunch of like Bible study stuff and stuff like that and a bunch of talks and whatever, and you know, this type of content. And so like I think he you know, it's a very interesting person that we're dealing with. You know, he obviously is very committed to, you know, proselytizing you know, the good word of Jesus Christ to all the people online. And I think it's really interesting, and it's kind of the thing that, you know, is not surprising to see at all, is how like he is an absolute piece of shit who uses his religion to justify him being a piece of shit. Because like, you don't gotta do that, man. You don't gotta be a terrible person. Because I've seen multiple times like him tweeting and him talking about like, you know, why gay people are bad and stuff like that. You know, what the kind of like the common thing you see with religious zealots online doing. And it's very interesting to me to see, like, because like I'm obviously, you know, terminally online, and I also like, you know, in a few spaces. So I see this dude, the faithful sheriff, and I see, you know, James Tallarico, who is like the Democratic nominee for senator in Texas. Now, do I think James Tallarico is the most perfect human being? Probably not. But the difference between how this peanut motherfucker and then James Tallarico speak about their religion and when it comes to like gay people and like minorities and other religions is just absolutely insane. Because the faithful sheriff was on their fire for basically telling a Muslim person that he was going to hell. You know, and I think he did recently apologize for that, but like, it's hard to believe that you're actually doing that in a sincere manner. And then you have like James Tallarico, who is also like a Christian, a Catholic. I don't know the exact sect of Christianity that he's in, but this guy uses the Bible to say like this is why we should accept people. He said like, you know, it's we should accept Hindus, Buddhists, Sikhs, Jews, Muslims, atheists, agnostics, because like some of them can be more Christ-like than, you know, Christians who are trying to say that they're the best people in the entire world. And also like James Tallarico also says like we're supposed to love everybody. That's why you're supposed to love gay and trans people. And like he literally recently said like in an interview, it's like, oh, if you love people outside of like your family and friends, and he said I love trans kids. And like the idea is that, you know, you're supposed to love thy neighbor if you follow this religion. I know this is kind of like a side tangent, but it's kind of just emphasizing why this faithful sheriff guy's an absolute piece of shit, because you do also have like this high profile Christian dude who's just not a bad person and doesn't use his religion to be a bad person. He actually does the religion the right way and uses it to be a good person. I just kind of want to talk about that and like just call a spade and call the faithful sheriff a piece of shit, or Dr. Witness, or whatever he's going to do next. Because he is a piece of shit, and it's unfortunate to see people with this much motion being an absolute piece of shit. Because once again, dude can be Catholic all he wants. Dude can be Christian all he wants. But like you gotta listen to the words of what you're reading, and you know, love thy neighbor, and not say, hey, if you're a minority, you go to fucking hell. I guess if you're gay, you're going to hell. Like, don't do that stuff. That's not what the words say in the book that you're supposed to read. It is kind of just weird. And I also just wanted to, like, you know, say how much of a piece of shit and how little I think of this guy. And it's just unfortunate that, you know, he has some motion. Obviously, people are following him. I guess not anymore, because once again, he just completely suicide bombed his branding. Or maybe he was falling off, and that's why he did it anyway. Wasn't really going to talk about this guy because I thought he was a burnt peanut, but apparently, you know, he isn't the burnt peanut, and you're mentally disabled if you think so. But just, you know, because of that, I think he's a piece of shit, and I don't think, you know, he's a good person anyway. And also, you know, a bit of a side change about Tallarico versus this guy and like what good Christians actually look like, I guess. Anyway, you know, that's all I got for today. So thank you for watching. Goodbye.